All right, let's dive in. Seems like you guys are really interested in AI and robotics this week, specifically those humanoid helpers we're starting to see more of.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of buzz.
We're focusing on this article from Artificial Intelligence News, a Korean publication.
Interesting.
It highlights a new AI model called Helix
Oh, yeah, Helix.
from a company called Figure, and it's kind of shaken things up a bit.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive stuff.
So what's the big deal with this Helix? What makes it so special?
Well, this article dives into how Helix is making robots much more adaptable
Okay.
and responsive, kind of like what Google has been doing with their RT2 model.
Oh, interesting.
They're both using this really cool combination of visual data
Okay.
and something called natural language processing.
So break that down for me. What is natural language processing?
Basically, it's the ability of a computer program to understand human language, like what you and I are speaking right now.
Oh, cool.
Instead of needing a bunch of complicated code for each task, these robots are starting to understand commands given in everyday language. Pretty neat, huh?
Yeah, that's definitely impressive. But the article really zones in on this Helix model from Figure. What makes it so special?
One of the biggest things is its ability to interact with objects it's never encountered before.
Oh, wow.
We call this object generalization.
Object generalization. Okay.
Like, imagine you tell your robot to grab your keys. Helix would allow the robot to identify any object with key-like features, even if it's never seen your specific keychain before.
That's mind-blowing. So does this mean that we're finally getting closer to having robots that can handle, like, the unpredictable nature of our homes? Because, let's be honest, most of us don't live in perfectly organized showrooms, right?
You're absolutely right, and you hit the nail on the head. That's a huge hurdle for home robotics.
Yeah.
Think about how often you rearrange furniture or leave things out of place. Older robots would be completely thrown off by this, needing to be reprogrammed for every little change.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
So how does Helix change things?
Helix is designed to adapt to those ever-changing environments without needing all that retraining.
Gotcha.
The article gives this great example. Let's say you tell the robot, hand that bag of chips to the robot on your right. Helix allows the robot to not only understand the command, but also to identify the correct bag of chips and the other robot, even if they've never encountered those specific objects before.
So it's almost like these robots are starting to develop a sense of common sense. Is that too far-fetched?
It's an interesting way to put it. Maybe not common sense in the way that humans experience it,
Yeah.
but certainly a huge leap in their ability to process information and apply it to new situations.
Okay, color me impressed. But I'm curious, how does this learning process compare to how robots used to learn? I mean, didn't they need thousands of demonstrations to grasp even simple tasks?
You're right. Traditionally, programming robots was incredibly tedious.
Yeah.
The article actually includes a graphic that highlights this difference in the learning curve.
Okay.
With Helix, robots can learn much faster from visual data and language input.
So it's like switching from dial-up internet to fiber optic.
Pretty much.
That's quite a speed boost. I'm sensing a theme here. It seems like Figure's really going all in on this vision of robots becoming commonplace in our homes.
I think so, yeah.
Why do you think they're making this shift from their focus on industrial robots?
Well, it's a smart business move if you think about it. The demand for home robots is growing rapidly.
Okay.
And Figure seems to be anticipating a future where robots are as common in our homes as smartphones are today.
It's a fascinating prospect. But before we get too swept up in the whole robot revolution, let's take a step back and consider some potential challenges. I mean, no new technology comes without its hurdles, right?
Absolutely. There are definitely still some challenges ahead before we see widespread adoption of these humanoid helpers in our homes.
Like what? Give us the reality check here.
Well, safety is a big one. We need to make sure these robots can navigate our homes without bumping into things, knocking things over, or posing any kind of danger to people, especially like kids and pets.
Yeah.
Durability is another concern. Can they withstand the wear and tear of everyday life? Our homes aren't exactly controlled environments like factories.
Good point. And I imagine the cost is a major factor, too.
For sure.
Are we talking like luxury car prices for these robot assistants?
That's a valid concern, and we don't have all the answers yet.
Yeah.
Figure hasn't released any official pricing, but it's safe to say that early models will likely be quite expensive.
So maybe not quite ready to replace my room just yet.
Not quite yet.
But it definitely sounds like we're on the cusp of some major changes. I'm really curious to hear more about the practical applications of this technology and what it could mean for our daily lives.
We'll definitely dive deeper into those aspects in a bit. But first, let's shift gears and talk about how this shift towards home robotics is actually part of a much larger trend. We've been talking about Figure and this Helix model. But, it's important to remember they're not alone in this. Lots of companies are realizing the potential of home robots.
That's a good point. It feels like we're seeing more and more of this technology popping up everywhere. What's driving this sudden surge in interest?
Well, it's not so sudden when you look at the bigger picture. A few things are happening at once.
Okay.
First, robots are becoming more affordable to make.
Right.
Not everyone can buy one yet, but it's not as crazy expensive as it used to be.
That makes sense. Technology usually gets cheaper as it becomes more common, right? Is that the only reason, though?
Not at all. AI, like Helix, is making robots way more capable. They can do a lot more than just simple tasks now.
Yeah.
And remember those demographic shifts we hear about sometimes?
Uh-huh.
In lots of countries, people are getting older and they might need more help around the house.
Yeah, that's true.
Robots could be a big part of that solution.
Wow, I hadn't thought about it that way, but it totally makes sense. Figure's definitely in the right place at the right time with this technology.
Definitely. And while it's exciting, we need to be realistic, too.
Oh, for sure.
There are some big questions we need to answer before robots are in everyone's home.
Yeah, like what?
For example, what about jobs?
Oh, yeah.
Will robots create new jobs, or will they take away jobs from people?
That's the big question, right?
Exactly. And think about privacy. These robots will see everything in your home. How do we keep that information safe?
Those are really important points. It's easy to get caught up in the cool factor and kind of forget about the potential downsides.
Exactly. And it's not just about figuring out the technical stuff.
Yeah.
We need to think about how robots will change the way we live and interact with each other. Will we become too dependent on them?
It's like every cool sci-fi movie has a cautionary tale about robots, right? We want the helpful ones, not the ones that take over.
Right. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right, of course.
But you're right. It's important to have these conversations now.
For sure, yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to Helix for a second. The article mentions something called a vision language action model.
Right.
What exactly does that mean?
Yes, the VLA model. This is pretty much what it sounds like.
Okay.
It's a way for robots to see, understand what you're saying, and then actually take action.
So it's like giving robots a basic set of senses
Uh-huh.
and the ability to understand instructions, similar to how we humans interact with the world.
Exactly. And this is a big step forward from how robots used to be programmed, where every single movement had to be coded, right?
Right. With a VLA model, robots can learn by watching humans or by being given instructions. It's a lot more like how we learn.
And that object generalization we talked about earlier is a key part of this, right? The robot being able to interact with new objects it's never seen before.
Exactly. It's like teaching a child about different fruits. You show them an apple, then an orange. They learn what those fruits look like.
Yeah.
Then if they see a pear for the first time, they can probably guess it's a fruit too, even though they've never seen one before.
So it's about recognizing patterns
Uh-huh.
and applying that knowledge to new situations.
Right.
Pretty impressive.
It really is. And the more these robots learn, the better they'll get at handling those new situations.
This Helix technology is clearly a big step forward in the world of robotics. It's amazing to see how far AI has come in such a short time. But I'm still curious about the practicalities. What will it actually be like to have these robots in our homes? Yeah, it really does feel like science fiction is becoming reality, huh?
It does.
But, like you said earlier, we still need to figure some things out before robots are helping us, like, fold laundry and make dinner.
Right.
What are some of those things?
Well, one of the big questions is, how much are these robots actually going to cost?
Right, because the article didn't mention any specific prices, did it? Are we talking like a small fortune here to get one of these?
Well, Figure hasn't affiliately said anything about pricing yet, but based on what we know about similar technologies, these early models are probably going to be pretty expensive.
Okay, so not exactly something you would just pick up on a whim at the electronics store.
Yeah.
More like an investment.
Yeah, think of it like the early days of flat-screen TVs or smartphones.
Okay.
They were super pricey at first, but then the prices came down as more people started buying them.
Right, okay, that makes sense. But besides the cost, we talked about those ethical concerns too. What's being done to make sure these robots are developed and used responsibly?
That's a really crucial part of this whole conversation, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
Lots of researchers and companies are working hard to create ethical guidelines for AI and robotics.
Like what kind of guidelines are we talking about?
Well, for example, they're figuring out how to make sure the algorithms that control these robots are fair and unbiased. And they're also looking at ways to protect our privacy when these robots are in our homes collecting data about our lives.
Okay, so it's not just about making robots that are like smart and capable,
Uh-huh.
but also about making sure they're used in a way that benefits everyone.
Exactly. It's about making sure that these robots are tools that help us create a better future, not create new problems.
Well said. It seems like we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we did.
We explored some really cutting-edge AI technology with Helix.
Uh-huh.
We talked about all the exciting possibilities and some potential challenges of having robots in our homes. And we even touched on some of those ethical questions that come along with all of this.
It's definitely a lot to think about.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this one thought. As this technology keeps getting better, how do you see robots fitting into your own life?
Ooh, that's a good question.
What role would you want them to play?
That is a great question to ponder, for sure. And for those of you who want to learn more about Figure and Helix, we've got links to the original article and some other resources in our show notes.
Happy exploring.
Yes, happy exploring, everyone. And we'll catch you on our next deep dive.